Halo, these are not. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 worst Xbox games of all time. For this list, we'll be looking at the absolute worst games that have ever released on an Xbox console. That means games that have been released on Xbox, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. This list also isn't limited to exclusives either. Any and all Xbox games will be considered. Number 20, Rogue Warrior. The Bethesda logo usually represented a stamp of approval for some. That was certainly not the case in 2009's Rogue Warrior, and certainly not the case most recently. But anyways, in this first-person shooter, you play as Richard Marcinko, a US Navy SEAL who infiltrates North Korea to disrupt their missile program. Rogue Warrior proved promising, especially when Bethesda fired Zombie Studios for doing a crappy job and restarting the game from scratch with Rebellion development. That and the involvement of Mickey Rourke, but not even Rourke's potty mouth could save this dumpster fire of a game. The best thing we can say about it is that it's over in just 2 hours. Number 19, WWE 2K20.
Saito suplex! Just vicious.
If you watch funny glitch compilations on YouTube, chances are you've seen your fair share of WWE 2K20. Hopefully that's the only interaction you've had with this game. 2K20 is the latest entry in the long-running WWE series, and the first not to be developed by Yukees.
This has got trouble written all over it, guys. There's the elimination. Dash Wilder has been eliminated.
Even if you didn't know anything about the game's development, the change in developers is more than evident. The game is a complete disaster in every sense of the word, from its horrendous physics to the mind-boggling amount of bugs and glitches. The game is woefully underdeveloped, and its laughable reputation was a major reason for the cancellation of 2K21.
Red's going to use her briefcase to put an end to this brawl.
Number 18, The Walking Dead Survival Instinct. The Walking Dead could do no wrong in 2013. The TV show was the most popular drama in the world, aside from maybe Game of Thrones, and everyone was still reeling from the incredible Telltale game. But Survival Instinct was like a zombified shell of the Walking Dead franchise. It looked and played much like a game from 2004, and it absolutely squandered the neat idea of a Dixon Brothers prequel. Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman disowned the game in a Reddit AMA, proving that even the franchise's most earnest devotees wanted nothing to do with it.
Baker Mike, you stay put. You just slow me down right now. The hell I would. But I was thinking of kicking my feet up.
Number 17, Kinect Sports Rivals. Once upon a time, the team behind Kinect Sports, Rare, were responsible for some of the greatest games ever. GoldenEye, Donkey Kong Country, and Banjo-Kazooie. Yet for such a pristine developer, having Microsoft force them to make sports compilations for the Kinect felt like they had zero respect for the Rare brand name.
When it's up in the air, swing to serve. Come on! Oh boy, that's a doozy.
While the first 2 games in the series weren't anything to write home about, Rivals felt like the team didn't want to do these anymore. Not only did they miss their target as an Xbox One launch title, but some movements didn't register properly, which could lead to frustration. It was not the killer app that the Xbox One so desperately needed, and it resulted in layoffs at Rare. Number 16, Sonic the Hedgehog 2006.
The ground here is unstable with lava. It's probably because of me.
Sonic 06 is historic, just not in a good way. By this point, everyone knows the story about this utter failure that was Sonic 2006. We've even done a full video on the topic which you should go check out. But for the Cliff Notes versions, it was developed to commemorate the series' 15th anniversary, and was meant to both honour the series' legacy and launch it into the future. Unfortunately, the development was marred by Sega's decision to split the team to focus on Sonic and the Secret Rings, and the rushed development to secure a holiday release. This all meant that Sonic 06 was both woefully incomplete and incredibly disappointing.
It's been a while, my dear Rouge. And of course, Shadow. Now, if you'd be so kind as to hand back the Scepter of Darkness you took from me.
Number 15, Pimp My Ride. Back in the mid-2000s, rapper Exhibit hosted a show on MTV called Pimp My Ride. It saw West Coast Customs and Galpin Autosports restoring and customizing crappy old beaters. Now, do we really need an entire video game centered around customizing vehicles? Well, not really. That's why Pimp My Ride decided to take a different approach. Rather than customizing cars, the game mostly revolved around silly minigames and street racing. However, the driving mechanics were outrageously bad, and the minigames were shallow and boring. The show was never asking to be translated into a video game, and the fact that this is what we got is somehow even more offensive.
And you only got so long to get that ride looking sick, so don't waste no time.
Number 14, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. This is the video game equivalent of an aging athlete coming out of retirement to show the new kids how it's done, only to embarrass themselves and prove the virtues of retirement. Once upon a time, the Tony Hawk series was the name in gaming. The main series went on hiatus in 2007 following Proving Ground, and Pro Skater 5 looked to reinvigorate the franchise for a new generation. It did the exact opposite. The game was rushed out due to an expiring licensing deal between Tony Hawk and Activision, resulting in a truly appalling product. Time to hit the remaster button and see if nostalgia can save this franchise from a train wreck. Number 13, Super Knight Riders. This is an arcade title for the Xbox One, but it's easily among the cheapest and dullest arcade titles out there. Super Knight Riders stands out. The game claims to be a throwback to retro racing games of old, but we'd rather play a 20-year-old game than this mess. It's marred by persistent frame rate issues and is woefully lacking in content. The gameplay itself is also super frustrating, and not in the challenging Dark Souls kind of way. More in the, this game sucks kind of way. Number 12, Kabuki Warriors. The Xbox's debut was an interesting time indeed, especially for its launch titles. On November 15, 2001, the Xbox launched with Halo Combat Evolved, a game that single-handedly changed first-person shooters and maybe even the video game art form forever. 4 days later, Kabuki Warriors was released. You don't remember that for a reason. The game was widely panned by critics, with many highlighting its pitiful graphics and the fact that there was only one attack button. The only thing this game is good for is appearing on worst of all time lists. Number 11, Amy. Amy was doomed from the start. It tasks you with remaining physically close to an immune child during a zombie outbreak, meaning the game is essentially one long escort mission. Think the Ashley sections from Resident Evil 4, only it's the whole game, and it's 50 times more frustrating. Even ignoring the game's bafflingly stupid concept, the confounding gameplay, infuriating controls, and the general lack of polish made clear it was a poorly produced and developed video game. Amy was not only boring, but infuriating. It's a great example of a horrible premise made even worse by incompetent game design. Number 10, Aliens Colonial Marines. Hype was high for Aliens Colonial Marines. It It was an official sequel of one of the most popular titles and acclaimed action movies of all time, and both Lance Henriksen and Michael Biehn were reprising their roles as Bishop and Hicks, respectively. Unfortunately, the game suffered from a tumultuous development process, and it turned out uglier than the iconic xenomorphs themselves. It was marred by technical problems that made playing it a chore, and even when the game was working right, players were forced to contend with atrocious AI and eye-bleeding graphics. It was a disappointment for the ages, and a major stain on Gearbox's reputation.
Stop it! Just let's get back to operations, alright? God damn it, you two!
Number 9. Rambo, the video game. It's frankly amazing to us that there hasn't been a great and widely popular Rambo video game. The franchise is practically begging for one. Unfortunately, what we got instead is a rail shooter straight out of 1997, and this was released in 2014. Light gun rail shooters have their place in history, but the gaming world has long moved on from this genre. And while we wouldn't say no to a light gun Rambo game, we do say no to the game's obvious lack of polish and basic game design. It's a cheap game with horrible mechanics and production values. They didn't even get Sly Stallone to reprise his role, they just reused dialogue from the movies. Let's blow it up with an explosive arrow and be done with it. Number 8. Bomberman Act Zero. Act Zero is not what fans of the cartoony and colourful Bomberman series was expecting. Being different is okay, and we respect Hudson Soft for trying something new. But sometimes you veer too far into new and lose sight of what made the series so successful in the first place. But it's not just the major shift in style that proved to be a problem. The game contained excruciating load times, dull and repetitive graphics, and abhorrent artificial intelligence. If you undergo a major stylistic shift, you should at least ensure the game is, good. Act Zero was neither expected, wanted, or good. Number 7. Fast and Furious Showdown. Fast and Furious is one of those exceptionally rare franchises that just keeps getting better as it goes. Fast 5 was a monumental improvement over Fast and Furious, and Furious 6 ensured that 5 wasn't just a fluke. Bridging the gap is Showdown, which is arguably the worst licensed game ever released, and that's truly saying something. There is nothing redeemable about this despicable title. It's ugly, it's poorly designed, it doesn't play well, and it's hard to gold to charge even more than $10. It's an absolute shame this excellent movie franchise had this as a video game tie-in. Number 6. Batman Dark Tomorrow. Dark Tomorrow proved to be an ambitious Batman title unlike any other. It was originally envisioned as a GameCube exclusive that would contain free roaming and open-ended gameplay, Arkham style, before Arkham was even a thing. The result was very much, well, not that. Rather than open-ended gameplay, the game consisted of linear stealth-based missions that were severely hampered by nonsensical controls and a frustrating camera. Seriously, is there anything more frustrating in a game than a horrible camera? Combine that with the flaws of a generally lackluster game design and a boring combat system, and you have a game that even the Caped Crusader would want to seal away for eternity. Also, that is the worst Joker I have ever heard.
Pshaw! Child's play! I could do it every day of the week before breakfast.
But you didn't.
Number 5. Fighter Within.
Low straight combo!
You have to give Microsoft credit. They really tried with Kinect. It just wasn't a piece of technology that anyone wanted. That and the games were crap. Case in point, Fighter Within.
High hook combo!
Microsoft really messed up by launching the Xbox One with Fighter Within, and it's generally thought to be one of the worst video games ever made. It was absolutely tarnished by critics and general Xbox players alike, with most focusing on the game's unnecessary story, the shallow fighting mechanics, and the atrocious and often unresponsive motion controls. The Kinect was one of gaming's biggest failures, and games like this are a large reason behind its flopping. Number 4. Drake of the 99 Dragons. Developer IdleFX had big plans for this IP. If the game did well, they planned to launch a series of comic books and an animated television series to continue the story of the undead Drake and his 99 dragons. Unfortunately, the game did not do well. In fact, it was critically reviled. Nearly every aspect of the game's production was criticized, primarily the obtuse aiming system and unresponsive camera. But that's not all. There's also the laughable voice acting, use of stock sound effects, and the amateurish production values. It's the lowest rated Xbox game on Metacritic, and it's really not hard to see why. Number 3. Steel Battalion Heavy Armor. The Kinect was so bad that it even brought From Software to its knees. Yes, that From Software. Heavy Armor was the third installment in the Steel Battalion series, a series that was infamous for being bundled with a gigantic controller with lots of buttons. And Heavy Armor tried to work around the need for this expensive peripheral by instead having the player use the Kinect and the Xbox 360 controller at the same time. And the results were as disastrous as you think. While most critics agreed that it was a solidly crafted and produced video game, the uncooperative motion controls were unanimously vilified. A pretty game is a pretty game, but it doesn't mean much if you literally can't play it.
Hey, bud.
Number 2. Aquaman, Battle for Atlantis. Aquaman has long remained the laughingstock in the video game industry, and it may in fact be the second worst superhero video game ever made. It's a prime example of uninspired game design, as every aspect of its production was seemingly handled without care, or a budget. We don't know which is worse. It was often compared to the atrocity that is Superman 64, and while it may not be that bad, it's certainly not far off. It also didn't help that at the time, Aquaman himself was seen as a joke of a superhero. Put it all together, and you have a video game that attracted and intrigued absolutely no one. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few dishonorable mentions. Crimson Dragon. Leisure Suit Larry, box office bust.
Want more video game content? Check out our gaming channel Mojo Plays and discover games and ideas you never knew existed. With more lists, breakdowns, and our latest series, Arcade Roulette.
Justin and John are in!
Oh.
Hey, is that Porky Pig? There's a lot of things being ripped off in this game.
Number 1. Ride to Hell Retribution. The worst Xbox game of all time has to be Ride to Hell Retribution, aka 2013's biggest gaming meme. This game was just offensively bad, and we mean offensively bad. It contains all the cornerstones of a truly horrendous video game, including bad graphics, controls, gameplay, voice acting, AI, glitches, you know, the works.
Watch out, he's dangerous!
However, it also earned criticism for its misogynistic portrayal of video game characters, all of whom are subjected to incredibly awkward dry humping scenes. It was eventually delisted from Steam, which is probably for the best. The sooner we forget this game even existed, the sooner we will find true happiness.
Did you hurt him?
He did mention something about needing a long nap.
Now, let me show you what a mechanic can really do.
In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.